gonna follow you home.
Sinners is the latest vampire flick to hit theaters. The film is directed by Ryan Coogler, and it stars Michael B. Jordan in dual roles as twin brothers that go by their gangster names of Smoke and Stack. And this is actually the fourth film to come out in the year 2025 where the lead star of the movie plays dual roles. Earlier this year, we had the film Mickey 17, where Robert Pattinson played multiple versions of Mickey, but most specifically, Mickey 17 and Mickey 18. And then we got that again in the movie The Monkey, where Theo James played Bill and Hale, twin brothers, trying to avoid that guy right back there the entire time. And then in the movie Alto Nights, we got a weird situation where Robert De Niro was cast as two rival gangsters, but they weren't related at all. They just cast the same actor. And so for the fourth time in 2025, we get Sinners, starring Michael B. Jordan and Michael B. Jordan. Let's do the review.
Here we go.
That is one big pile of shit.
No, I shot him. Bullets in the fall killed him.
So Sinners opens up with both twin brothers that again go by their gangster names of Smoke and Stack, returning home to Mississippi from Chicago, where they used to work for Al Capone. And when they come home, they bring home with them a ton of Irish beer and a bunch of Italian wine. And they brought all that home because their plan is to go home, open up the old sawmill, turn it into the Juke nightclub. And that's immediately what they get to work on. And the whole first half of this film is really setting up all the chess pieces that they need to get that nightclub open. For instance, picking up musicians is the first thing on their list, and they pick up their young cousin Sammy, played by Miles Catton, who can play the blues so very well, has a great voice, can play guitar. And the second musician that they pick up is named Delta Slim. They pick him up as this drunk harmonica player. Turns out he can play the piano really well, and Delta Slim is played by Delroy Lindo, who I immediately noticed from Gone in 60 Seconds. It was really cool to see him in this film because I loved his character in that movie, and I really loved his character in this movie too. He brings a lot of laughs to the screen. He's just this drunk old man, but he's just something so delightful watching him do his thing. And again, they're just setting all their chess pieces in motion for this nightclub to open, like getting someone to bring the food, getting someone to cook the food, getting a bouncer for the front door named Cornbread. There's just so many things they have to put in place, and they really want to get things going immediately. Like the day they get to town is also the day they open this Juke nightclub. And along the way of setting all of this into motion, they also run into old love interests, both Mary and Annie, two girls from their hometown that they haven't seen since they've been gangsters in Chicago. And while all of that is going on, you have the character of Remick who shows up in town, and Remick is a vampire played by Jack O'Connell. And so this vampire now wants to find people to turn into more vampires so he can create an army of vampires. And that is the best synopsis that I can give you for Sinners. If that sounds like a fun time at the theater, well, it is playing now. You should go check this movie out. I had a really good time seeing this on the big screen, and I would recommend it to you. Now we are going to get into my positives and my negatives for Sinners here in a second, but before we do that, if this is the first time you found my channel, well, I would love for you guys to hit that subscribe button. Check out all the different content on my channel, whether you like movie reviews just like this, Blu-ray talk, ranked list videos. I've got a little bit of everything on my channel, and I'd love for you to check it out. All right, let's get into my positives and my negatives for Sinners. My first positive for this movie has to be the range that Michael B. Jordan is able to give. Playing dual roles cannot be easy, especially because, yes, they're identical twin brothers, and so, sure, he can just look the same, but they have different feelings, they have different emotions, they have different love interests, and so he has to play two very different people. One of them is more happy-go-lucky, the other one is stricter about things, and so you get to see that range out of him. There's also some spoilery things that I won't get into that happens to one of the brothers, and so you get to see even more range out of Michael B. Jordan going to play two very different characters. And all of that worked for me. And I've always enjoyed Michael B. Jordan's presence in any film I've ever seen. Of course, in the Creed movies, he's absolutely amazing. But in this film, what I really got out of him that I haven't seen before was this massive amount of range. And I felt like I was able to see that because he played dual roles. Where I thought this was a weird casting at first, I was like, why wouldn't you just get another person? They wanted them to be twin brothers. I get that, but why wouldn't you get a second person so that it doesn't feel like I'm looking at the same actor? However, I didn't feel like I was looking at the same actors the entire time. You have these two brothers who look identical, but they are very different people, and Michael B. Jordan's really able to bring that out and I love that. And I can't hold off any longer. My next positive has to be about the vampires in this film, whether it's the way they look, the way they act, the way they sort of float through the air. The vampires are done so damn well. First of all, we'll talk about the teeth. Instead of just a couple of pointy teeth, it's just a mouth of sharp teeth on everybody who turns into a vampire, and that's really fun to see. And then the way, like I said, they float through the air, that's so cool, because yeah, they don't just turn into vampire bats. This isn't Dracula. Like, they can fly, but they just sort of seamlessly leap right into the air and they'll come down on their opponent. I thought that was so cool. Everything about the vampires, from the look of the vampires, especially the last look you get at Jack O'Connell's Remick, the vampire that sort of kicks all of this off. The last look you get of him is absolutely terrifying. There's some great vampire moments in this movie, and of course there's some gory action moments, because you got vampires who are going after innocent people. You're gonna get some of that great vampire goodness that we all love in vampire movies, and so if you're a big vampire fan, you're gonna love what they do with the vampires throughout this film. My next positive has to be this awesome musical scene. And now the music wasn't necessarily my favorite part about this movie. We'll get to that in a little bit. But there's a scene in particular, a one-shot scene that is so cool and so well done that I had to put it in my positives. So it starts with Sammy playing a blues song. And as he plays, as people are starting to get into it, one of the major themes of this movie is that music can sort of transcend time. You can start playing music and it'll sort of inspire the future. It can also bring out the past. And the best way that they explain this is during this scene, as Sammy's playing it, as the people in the nightclub are getting into this blues song, you start to see a rapper, then you see a DJ, then you see a ballerina, then you see an old shaman-like figure where it's just from the past making music, and they're all over this nightclub. But again, the coolest thing about this scene to me was that it was one shot, and as the camera glides through the nightclub, you're seeing all these different musicians throughout history playing their music, inspiring people, inspiring the next generation, getting inspiration from the previous generation, and just the way they were able to portray that in that scene really worked for me. One of my biggest positives of this movie. And that'll lead to my final positive, which is the overall narrative of this film about these two twin brothers who used to work for Al Capone, who are finally free to do their own thing. That is something they really touch on in this movie, and that's the emotional impact you get out of this film, because these two twin brothers probably grew up in the deep South Mississippi, where it was not safe to be the color that they were. They get out, they go to Chicago, they're working for Al Capone, and it was not safe to work for him. They get away from him, they go back home to do something new, and for a few brief hours before they have this run-in with a vampire, they truly feel free. They truly feel like they can be who they want to be. And the movie is so well done in that regard, portraying that overall story about two men wanting their freedom and wanting the freedom for those around them and just wanting to put something positive into the world. And the way they go about it is so well done. So I loved the overall narrative of this film of just two brothers wanting to be free and also wanting the people around them to be free. And so they portray that through different ways in this film. For instance, because they're in Mississippi in the 30s, you're going to have some Klan action. And so when the Klan members show up, they get exactly what they deserve. And again, you see all these different people trying to take that freedom from them throughout this film, including the vampires. And the vampires that are there are also trying to take a form of their freedom. Yeah, they promise, getting to live forever, getting to be really free. But is that real freedom when you're controlled as a vampire? And so it's just so many levels to the narrative that Ryan Coogler was telling here, and I thought they did it so damn well. And that'll lead over to my negatives, and my first negative for this movie is actually going to be the music choices that they had throughout the film. Now, I say this completely understanding that the music was important to the narrative of the story, and I say this understanding that the music is important to some people, and some people may say, hey, no, I love blues music, so this really worked for me. If I loved blues music or the Irish music that they also work into this film, if I loved any of that, then maybe those would have been stronger positives for me, and I could have thrown this in the positive column. I just personally didn't feel like I connected to the music in this movie because I'm not a blues fan. I also felt like I didn't connect to the other music outside of the club in this movie, where you had the vampires who seemed to be doing some sort of Irish folklore music. Like, that didn't connect with me either. So I didn't feel like I really connected to the music. And so since the music is so important to the story, I feel like I could have enjoyed this movie even more if I connected to the music more. And again, that's completely understanding that people who love blues music, this is not going to be a negative for you, or people that can just look past that, it's not going to be a negative for you. But just for me personally, since that's not music that I enjoy personally, that's going to be a negative for me. That'll lead over to my other negative, and that is that the pacing of this film feels very jarring. And what I mean by that is that the first half of this film is really the setup of what they're going to do that night. And so it feels like a very slow burn world building setup where you meet all of these characters, figure out what's going on with them so they can get them all into this nightclub. But once they get them there, in the back half of this film, the last hour or 45 minutes of this film, it is just throw everything at the wall and as fast paced as you can. And it almost feels like there's not enough time for them to tell this story. It's almost to the point where the movie is 2 hours and 17 minutes long. And this is one of those rare times where I feel like it would have benefited the movie for them to stretch that runtime out a little further, 2 hours and 45 minutes, even 3 hours, so that you get a little bit cleaner of a pace, because the way this thing was paced out felt like the first hour to hour 20 of this movie is very slow going. And then again, the last hour to 45 minutes is just throw everything at the wall. And for me, the viewer, that was very jarring, and I just didn't mesh with that very well. Again, if you'd stretched the movie out a little longer, maybe played into some of those things you had set up earlier on in the movie, it would have felt cleaner. This movie even has 2 post-credit scenes, and while I enjoyed both of them and I understood what they were doing with them, it again felt like you were throwing so much at the end of this movie, where you could have just stretched this runtime out a little further and have your story feel a bit more cohesive. Instead, it just feels very much so thrown together in the last half and very well perfected in the first half. And there's something about that that just really didn't work for me. So my enjoyment for this movie overall would probably have been better had they given me a little bit more. But overall, I really enjoyed this movie. It's a movie that I would highly recommend if you're a big Ryan Coogler fan or Michael B. Jordan fan, or even just a big vampire fan. I think it brings a lot to the vampire genre. So if you're a big vampire fan, check this movie out in theaters. It is worth your time. And as always, guys, those are just my opinions because that's my review for Sinners. Have you had a chance to see this movie yet? If you have, let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know where we agree or disagree. Maybe some of the things I liked you didn't like, or maybe my negatives were not negatives for you at all and you absolutely think this is the best movie of the year. I'd love to know all of that in the comment section. Finally, guys, if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Alright guys, we got to the end of my review for Sinners. Had a really fun time making this video, and yeah, I wore this Spider-Man shirt pointing at himself because Michael B. Jordan's playing 2 different characters, but he looks the same. It made sense when I put the shirt on. Alright guys, if you like this video and you want to check out any other content on my channel, well, I've got all of my horror movie reviews right there, and I've got all of my 2025 movie reviews right there.